We are recording.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. This is the Lehigh County Authority Board of Director meeting on Monday, June 23rd, 2025. The meeting is being held by either in the hybrid fashion, either live or by Zoom or with a phone call. Lisa, would you mind going to the roll call for the Board of Directors?
Roll call of the board. Amir Kamili.
Here.
Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Ed Lyons.
Here.
Linda Rosenfeld. Here. Norma Cusick.
Here.
Tim Baker. Sean Ziller.
Here.
Mark Gramis. Peter Tent.
Here.
We have 7 board members present, so you have a quorum.
Thank you. So the package for this meeting was sent in advance, either through the mail or email, and also was posted on the website. If you did not receive it, please talk to Lisa with the issue. Going to review the agenda. Lisa, any changes to the agenda? Any need for an executive session?
There are no changes to the agenda. There was a minor update that was distributed in advance, so everyone has that and is posted online. And just want to note that Chairman has called an executive committee meeting following his meeting. So we'll talk about how to transition to that at the end of the meeting.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate that. Going to the approval of the last meeting minutes. Linda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Sean and second by Linda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any public comments on any item which is not on the agenda?
No comments. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Jennifer and Brian. So moving on our agenda for today. The first topic that we have on the finance and administration is 2024 audit and financial statement.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have online Nate Sports from Zelenkoski and Axelrod, who is the audit manager for our audit program here at LCA. And Nate is going to take you through some of the mandatory commentary and items of consideration that are important on the 2024 financial statements and the audit. Hi, Nate.
Hi, Ed. Thanks for having me here, guys. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I wanted to start by thanking Ed, Linda, Todd, and the rest of their team. They got us all the information again this year in a timely fashion. We got the PMRS reports in time, so we were able to hit the April 30th deadline to get the financial statements out again for the second year in a row. So again, I'd like to thank them. They make the audit a smooth process, as smooth as possible. Some of the required communications that I wanted to go over with the board that we're required to do are we were able to once again complete the audit within our time frame outlined in our engagement letter and our scope. We complied with all relevant ethical requirements regarding independence for the audit. We noted no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control that we would require to communicate to the board. We noted no significant or unusual transactions that required communication to the board. And during the course of our audit, we did not encounter any significant difficulties in performing the audit. Again, everything we asked for was readily available and prepared. We noted no material misstatements to the financial statements that required communication to the board. We also had no disagreements with management regarding accounting policies or application of those policies to the statements. And we were not aware of any consultations with any outside accounting firms. Just one of the things, just one thing I like to highlight every year with you guys is you're one of the rare entities that actually has a net OPEB asset. So you guys were forward thinking in that and funded the suburban OPEB plan. So again, that's a highlight that not many municipalities are authorities can claim within at least Pennsylvania that I'm aware of. Very few have actually gone ahead and funded that. So I'll turn it over if anybody had any questions.
Would you please explain what you just said?
So the OPEB, you guys, you provide after retirement benefits in the form of health care. Most entities within Pennsylvania didn't look ahead and fund those, so they're basically paying those on a pay-as-you-go basis. You guys actually established and set up a trust.
think you went silent.
Go with the pension plan.
So actually, yes, we have funded in advance.
Yeah.
And so.
I don't understand the acronym you used.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is everybody still?
Yep, he froze for me, so I think it's on his end.
Again,
I apologize. Did I get disconnected there?
a little bit.
I'm sorry, if you got the gist of it. So again, you offer post-employment benefits in the form of healthcare. Most entities within the Commonwealth are paying that on a pay-as-you-go basis. Basically, as they're being incurred, they're paying those liabilities. You guys actually had the foresight to set up a trust and fund that trust. Therefore, the entity itself, Lehigh Authority, isn't paying anything over the years for those. It's already been set aside. Again, super rare to do that, but very forward thinking.
So are there any questions that you would like to ask the auditor in terms of what they looked at, what they saw? To ask, are we frozen again? No, he's on.
No, I'm here.
To ask anything else about the statements themselves? There's lots of pages, lots of notes. I think that we do a pretty good job of telling you where we are along the year, and this kind of is no surprise when it comes around to it, so.
I would just add a question. Are there any trends that are perhaps not a problem now, which may be in the future that we should be aware of?
Not that I picked up during the financial statements. I would have said a couple years ago the city fund, but that seems to be improving based on the audits that we're performing. So nothing that I see trend wise. Your retirement, you do have a slight liability there, but it went down almost $1 million. It's very well funded. It just depends year to year on what the market does there. And I will say PMRS does a good job of kind of forcing you to put, the right amount in there to fund that liability going forward. So nothing significant on that end either.
Thank you.
And with the new immune system that hopefully will be in place in a couple months, does that help with the audit system to streamline things we're doing, or still the same?
So we do a lot of schedules for Nate's audit. Actually more now than when I first came on board, because we like to approach the audit in terms of they just look at things, they don't have to put anything together. As we embark on the new units, we've already done some testing with respect to financial statements themselves. And to be honest with you, we have an inclination to use that for the ACFR that's also due at the end of June. So I see the system itself playing a more vital role in eliminating some of the spreadsheet stuff that goes on and being more timely and easier to do. So, and one-stop shopping, the data in there is already good. You don't have any errors on the way out. So.
Any questions regarding this topic from the board members?
Okay.
This is for 2 years. Do we just do this biannually audits?
It's actually a 1 year, and you're just doing the other year for comparative purposes.
Correct. Yep.
The title was misleading.
Yeah, you always have another year to benchmark against if you want, but the audit itself is just for 2020.
Thank you.
I think we need approval for that. Is that correct? We have to vote.
We actually asked the board to accept
Okay.
the financial statements and audit. Rather than approve. Yeah.
So moved. I move that we accept the audit.
I'll second that. This is Norma.
Moved by Linda and second by Norma on the acceptance of the 2024 audit and audit statement. All in favor, say aye.
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 Approved.
Will the commissioners approve it then? Is that how it works? No, I was just,
Is that,
okay.
well, congratulations to Ed and their
Yeah.
team.
Thank you.
Their faultless year.
They do, the team does a really good job on this, and the audit is a whole lot more robust than many years ago. And I think that's makes it easier for the audit.
And of course, we have an outstanding treasurer, which helps.
Without question. All right, Nate. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you this week about the next one.
Sounds good. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. I appreciate that. Okay, moving to the next item on the agenda is the resolution 6-2025-1. That's the destruction of authority document. It's a yellow pages. It is the digital board package, page 7 to 9.
And for this one, it is kind of a standard annual process that we follow Peter, for your benefit. We are required to approve of documents that we wish to destroy. And Lehigh County Authority back in 2019 adopted the procedures outlined in the Municipal Records Act. So we're following the Municipal Records Manual in terms of the retention periods for different kinds of documents. So we're required to adopt or approve the list by resolution, and then the list is attached to the resolution. You'll see on that list lots of old financial documents and various other working papers. The file tag that's shown on the list relates to the type of file in the Municipal Records Manual and the retention period that's required. So we would ask for the board to approve the resolution so that we can shred documents tomorrow. We actually have the shredder on schedule for.
Any questions from the board members?
I just have a general question. So how do you handle like the pretreatment files, which are EPA and federal or DMRs and things like that for the state? Is that there's a separate policy for those?
They're all included in the Municipal Records Manual.
Okay.
So there's retention periods, some things you keep for 3 years, 7 years, mostly for financial stuff, but for engineering and regulatory, I think it's like forever. For 50 years, something along those lines.
What you're referring to, like the DMRs and self-monitoring reports and everything for the pre-treatment program?
Yeah.
I believe it's 5 or 7 years. But we have not disclosed them all at this point.
That's common.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea.
But we also have like this transition that Municipal Records Manual is really kind of focused on paper documents.
Right.
We have a ton of electronic stuff that like if we print an electronic, we receive something by email and we print it, which is the official record, those kinds of things we kind of tend to work through, but this is focused only on paper documents.
We have a separate policy for electronic records.
The electronic records actually do follow this as well, but we don't have all the systems in place to fully retain or remove electronic documents at this point. So we kind of have them all in various states of archive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board member?
Is there any effort to, instead of having all this paper documentation, to just turn it all electronic so you don't have to have, it's This looks like it's probably a couple dozen boxes.
Yeah.
Sitting here someplace.
So most of our focus in that area has been actually in Chuck's area with all the engineering drawings have all been scanned. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And trying to make sure that they're cataloged and in the right format so that the paper can go to permanent storage or some, dealt with in some other way. We also, a lot of the financial ones are in that category of we receive them electronically, but then we print them out to do something with them. So just to be on the safe side, we're saying we're putting them here and saying we're going to destroy them, but we still have the electronic records if we need them. In our system, our Munis system captures a lot of history as well.
Yeah, Munis is, the way that we're setting up Munis is we're really looking forward to putting everything in there electronically. And I've often wondered what it would look like in the office without all the file cabinets.
Yeah, I say this all the time, there's lots of value in the paper copies of the drawings. You can't scale off a distance on your computer screen on a PDF file for a drawing from the 1970s, right? You need that actual, a paper copy that you can print out to the original scale or have that. So it's very helpful to still have some paper around.
But we do have a lot of space being taken up in all of our buildings by paper. So it's, trying to find the right balance. Yeah.
I know we talked about this before, but we want to make sure we retain our insurance documents ever I'm at. Because everything ever pops out of the past, typically they're based on occurrence when the event occurred, which in some cases could be decades ago. You gotta find who your insurance company was and hope that they're still in business, which is another issue.
Any other comment, questions?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. So Jeff made the motion for the resolution 62-2025-1 on the destruction of authority document, and Linda second that. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, yes, okay. Okay, moving on. I think the next topic is monthly financial review.
Yes. The audit went so well, we'll let Ed present financials.
Yes, I know, your favorite time of a board meeting. So let's talk about how we did in May and where we are year to date. So for the month itself, we had two of the funds showed up with positive net income. One was minus. However, on a forecast side, we were all three were better than what we forecasted. So that's a good start for the month. On the cash flow side, we had a negative in suburban water, wastewater, and city division were positive. And again, same thing on the suburban water side. We did predict that we would be unfavorable or negative. So we have good news across all three funds on the cash flow side as well. In fact, pretty good variances. So with forecast, Q2 forecast, and 1 month in, actually 2 months in, where we were favorable to forecast for the month. Where are we year to date? So actually, we're looking pretty good with respect to forecast. We have the same thing. All three funds are registering positive variance to forecast on the net income side. Cash flows are doing well also, as we are seeing all three funds showing positive variance to forecast and cash flow, to a total of $2.4 million. Full year. We had done a Q2 forecast. Basically, we really haven't moved from that yet. I'll talk a little bit later about where we are with capital and incorporating some of the capital dollars. But at the moment, we were saying that suburban water on the net income side is gonna finish better than budget. Wastewater, you could say almost even with budget, and city division, about $4 million better than budget on income. On the cash flow side, we look like we'll be about almost $500,000 favorable on water. Again, hovering close to budget on wastewater cash flows and about $4 million higher on cash flows for the city. So just looking at suburban water for year to date on the income side, we're about $620,000 favorable. Actually, as soon as you look at that graph, you can see the reason why we are favorable is you're pretty much well below forecast on operating expenses. So that's a good surprise somewhat. And we did have some offset against operating revenues. So operating revenues are down a little bit. We're making up for that more on the operating expense side, and that is basically how you're getting to the 620,000 favorable variance. For the full year, at this point in time, with respect to revenues, we're kind of holding even compared to budget now. And we're a little bit down on the operating expense side. And we're making up for that on non-operating items, more particularly better income from investing activity. So that's helping us out to take about $400 and some thousand to budget.
If any one topics or one items which is causing that lower than expected operating expense cost?
Basically, it's more on the services side, okay? And I'm not sure that, quite frankly, we covered all the I'll call it the inflation that we're starting to see. We put some money in the budget for inflation. I think we're a little bit short of what we're really seeing with pricing. Suburban water cash flows, no. Year to date, a favorable variance of $503,000. That is pretty much coming from net operating activity, and all the other ones are kind of small. Debt services, a little bit unfavorable, and CAPEX is, well, pretty much dead even with forecast, and then some other money from investment income. So the big hitter there is net operating profit is carrying us in terms of the variance. Cash flows for the full year, again, we're a little bit down from the operating activity we just talked about against budget, but we're getting a lot more from debt service and investment income. Metrics on suburban water. Debt service coverage, good news, 1.93. We're down a little bit to fiscal year budget so far. However, we will correct that. I think by the end of the year, we'll be at 2.40, which will be above that. And we're certainly over the 1.20 threshold. Operating ratio, again, down a little bit as year to date where we thought we would be for the budget. We're going to climb up to about 1.24, so we're going to get really close to the target, and we're better than the internal target of 1. Days cash on hand, 237.6. I'd say that's pretty good with respect to being at 180 or better, and actually we think this is going to climb a little bit by the end of the year.
Can you define operating ratio? What is that the ratio of?
Operating ratio would be taking the operating revenues divided by the operating expenses and just computing that calculation. So theoretically, if you're covering all your expenses, and I don't take out depreciation from that, so the ratio you're seeing there is a number operating revenue divided by total expenses means you're 1.13 better, or 1.13 is the ratio on that.
I'd like to make a comment, and this is a good question. We sit here every month and improve these things, and I'm the treasurer, okay? I get lost to exactly what does this mean and why is it important? And I think at some point, whether we do a handout or have a session after this, kind of refresh our memories as to what's significant, what's not significant. Why do you highlight certain things? Why are other things not highlighted? And why is it important to the LCA? As a board, we approve these all the time. And quite frankly, we do not have an accountant on the board. Not that it makes a difference. But of course, we're relying on you. We're not expected to understand all this stuff. I just like to make that suggestion.
Yeah.
If Pete had a good
I
question.
think it's a good idea. In other businesses, you have your dashboard of, what are your key metrics that you as running the operation really focus on to see how you're doing, and better yet, that could be indicators of something that you need to deal with.
And if I could just jump on, and we can absolutely do that. I think that's a good topic for a future presentation. These three metrics, I will say, these are the three things that our rating agencies look at to show the health of the organization from a financial standpoint. And so we want to maintain those metrics for that purpose, in addition to just generally those are kind of the top thing. On the operating ratio side, I think Ed, just to kind of give color to what you're saying, because the ratio includes depreciation, if our ratio is 1 or better, it means we're covering depreciation, which generally means we're bringing in enough money to pay for some CapEx, some level of system repair, not just basic operating.
And as sidebar to that is, the reason why I like depreciation is if you theoretically look at a business, you invest money and then you have to invest money to keep it going. And if you use depreciation as that guideline, then you can at least assure yourself that what your revenues are capturing is both the operating expense and some portion of capital that's built into the rates, which is a whole lot better than being negative and then saying, well, every time we do capital, we have to borrow.
I think the point that, had mentioned, and I think it's a good one, that maybe a refresher, a few slides that, okay, as a board or as our entity or LCA, these are the requirements, right? That we have to have the ratio for debt services, for lenders that we have. So, a couple of things that help us to ground, what are important for LCA. Are we looking at the right metrics at the board level or not? So that would be great in the future.
To be honest with you, Mayor, I'd love to do that. I mean, when I first came here, I was doing sessions on depreciation and replacement recovery rates, and I'll be happy to do that. I mean, because I think you should at least understand what the main items, why they're main items, what they tell you. I think more important is what they tell you.
I agree, with the depreciation, that's so important that you fund that through CapEx. If you don't have sufficient CapEx, then you're degrading your organization. And then, I've seen this with way too many nonprofits that they don't fund their depreciation, not spending their CapEx. And then, they haven't been doing this for several decades. And then, oh gee, we have no money to fix our roof or whatever, and then all these, they've just let their organizations decline. So it's super important.
Point understood.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm not done yet.
No. I mean, thank you for the explanation.
No, and again, I would love to sit and go through some of the metrics. I think there's so many of them, and you can look at them telling you different stories that go. I mean, for instance, I'll get no tangent, and I will. Just looking at days cash on hand. I mean, we take a lot of money and we invest it in CDs and stuff, and we're not including that in the money that truly is available if we need to mature it and use it. So at some point in time, I'm looking at them numbers as well, especially in light of when I see people saying that S&P is looking at stuff like that. Anyway, onward. Wastewater. Year-to-date income variance of $420,000 on the favorable side. You get a combination there. It's coming from operating revenues. It's also coming from lower operating expenses. And we also had some favorable debt service to help us out as well. So you get a couple things adding to it there. In full year, we think that we'll be a little bit behind in revenue, a little bit higher in the operating expenses. And interest income will surpass that and help us, and interest expense will be lower, so. So on the cash flow side, we're favorable year to date by 433,000. Most of that is cash from operations, again, coming from higher net operating profit. And we have higher investment income helping us out to offset a little bit unfavorable debt service and financing costs. On a full year, we think we'll be kind of right in line with budget. So we got a couple minuses, $176,000 in cash from operations, but we'll make up with that in net investment income. Metrics for wastewater. So with some of the borrowing that we had been used to debt service ratios of like 5 and 8. We're now settled down to, with the balance, 1.50, which is still better than the 1.20 internal target. The budget for the year was 2.43, and based on the forecast, I think we'll be right around that level when we get to year end. Operating ratio, well, we came in at less than 1. So the way we budgeted it was at 0.92. We're a little bit lower than that. I think at the end, we'll be right around that 9192 level. So on cash flow, days cash on hand, we're still at 285 days cash on hand. That will come down a bit as we spend some capital money, but it will still be better than target of 180.
So another rookie question here. Could you define debt service coverage ratio? I think I have a general idea.
Okay, so this one is basically you have operating revenues, operating expenses, you start to net them out. You create this line item called net cash available for debt service. That's before you do capital, and that's before you pay your debt service. You get a number, and then you take in the calculation as the denominator the amount of debt service, which is the principal paying that you expect to pay out and the interest that you expect to pay out. You compare the two of them on a ratio and say it better be above 1.20. Does that make sense? Okay.
I can make, since we're asking good questions here today, one thing I want to point out, which I do every once in a while, on the operating ratio for this fund, while it looks a bit alarming to be below 1, we just want to be clear that this one is really driven by the way we bill through the intermunicipal agreements to the suburban signatories, which does not include depreciation. So we're only billing for actual expenses, and we have other ways of capturing capital. So it's kind of a different animal in suburban wastewater for now.
I think we covered wastewater. Cool, semi-division. Year to date, 987,000 favorable, pretty much coming from a couple areas. Operating revenues are up, operating expenses are down. You got higher investment income. The only thing that's a little bit higher is interest expense, and that is partly due to the accretion on the bonds and to accretion on the service concession payable, part of the annual amount of money. It's difficult to predict that when you're trying to do this in early year. So this one gets a little bit more nebulous, so to speak. Oh, sorry, we missed one. Yep. Income for the full year, we think will be better by $3.6 million. Most of that coming in lower debt service and higher interest income. City division cash flows year to date, we're $1.5 million better. That's really coming from cash from operations from higher operating profit. Full year investing in others, that will be coming from higher investment income. So metrics on the city, 2.62 coverage ratio. We had 1.88, and we think we'll be 2.13 at the end of the year, so that'll come down a bit. Still be better than targeted and also the budget for the year. Operating ratio are 2.28. That's good, as you can see, compared to the 1.74. We think we'll be at 1.74 by the end of the year. And days cash on hand, 377 versus 180 days. Good. We think we'll settle down at 321.7.
I'll make a comment on this one too. Since we're explaining things today. The operating ratio for the city division also looks different for a different reason. And that's really because debt service is not part of the calculation of operating ratio. And we have a very high debt load and a very high debt service payment. So our operating revenues are significantly higher than our operating expenses because we have to capture 16 million or so in debt service. So that's why you have that really high operating ratio.
Yes.
That's how the math works.
It's $350 million of debt. Yes. Yes. So from the scorecard, I know you all like the scorecard. You're hitting double digits on suburban water, suburban wastewater, and city. There isn't a red mark there right now. So I would say where we are year to date is in a pretty good position. Just a couple of things. We think the full year is forecasted to be better than budget. So, and we are certainly trending in that direction. So that's all good. I just mentioned score sheets in double digits for all three funds. That's good. We have some open positions. So actually helping out on the operating expense side, there's some lower personnel costs as a result of, not filling them yet. The Capital Works Group did complete a CAPEX forecast that still needs to be built in. I'll be doing that as we get into the June actuals. Cash flows will improve some, but they're sort of relatively close to the budget, except on the city side because of what's going on with the lead service line replacement and also the Pinvest issues associated with that. So we'll see an improvement, but there's the primary reason why. The negative cash flow in the city, well, we did plan that because we borrowed last year. And so we'll use that as we use that money, that will create a negative cash flow for the year.
And just maybe preemptive to your comment, Amir, the new Munis system will change the way some of our statements look going forward. Not right away, because we'll maintain kind of what we're doing. One of the things I know I'm personally looking forward to, and you might be as well, is by having the department breakdown in our financials, we'll be able to get a little more specific on the variances and the drivers for the variances, especially when you see those swings in OpEx. They'll be able to point to Chris and Andrew and say, why is it going up or down? And they'll have that data. So that's a future feature. Yeah.
I have a question. Any update on the bondholder investigation / Pinvest?
See, I'm glad I talked to you this morning. So last week, we had another round of potential telephone discussions to find out when we could get approval from Pinvest on the suggested supplemental indenture that we're working on, which was supposed to sound favorable to them. That kind of didn't go so well. Essentially, the legal people on the Pinvest side said that this is going to take some time, that there are board members, et cetera, that need to get on board with this, and some of them are not. And so we kind of allotted about 2 months time frame and put the entire project on hold until we sort through what we're gonna do. Well, how amenable our suggested language is gonna be to Penvest to begin with. If Penvest is not willing to accept the supplemental indenture, then the bond process isn't gonna work at all. So the bond consent process just won't work. Then it becomes, what are the other opportunities and what's the cost of that?
These are just city division though, that's that.
This is
indenture.
just city division. No, there's no issues with respect to suburban land at all. It's as a result of the indenture, the concession agreement, and the language about subordinate debt that exists in that indenture because we have a leasehold on the city, so.
Do they have a suggestion for the language they want that it will satisfy them?
If I went the way they passed the comment, and that was whatever we want, we're not gonna be able to sell that to the bondholders. They would find that they're losing their senior lien position somewhat if we follow all the requirements. So we've attempted to get at some major players in that language in that we thought could be amenable to them without doing any harm to the senior bondholders. We think that's where we are now, but apparently that's still being vetted, so.
But I don't understand why we're giving them 2 months or they're giving us 2 months if none of the language would satisfy them.
So we're giving them some time because commentary made was, let me work on it. And so given that the other options are much more costly, much more onerous on us, I think we should be willing to do that.
And their board of directors only meets every so often as well, so if it's
Great.
quarterly for the grant, legal process, I'm not sure if they meet more often for other reasons, but it sounds like they're needing the board's stamp of approval on this.
Yes.
Taking a slightly different approach than their standard.
Yes.
Have our attorneys gotten approval from these people?
From the bondholders
Yeah.
themselves, no.
No, that would be as a result of getting everybody else to say this works for us. And then you would go out to the bondholders and say, they would be the proof of whether it works for them or not.
Okay.
What I would add briefly is that the other members of the team, I think, have done a very good job of focusing in on what we anticipate would be a structure that would work. Those would be bond counsel, solicitor, Ed, Goldman, and then the calculation agent. So it's gone through several of those reviews, but as Lisa indicated, Penvest board doesn't meet as frequently. So the thought process is that hopefully with some time and some education, and perhaps the legal team from Penvest can persuade those folks that this does enough to protect Penvest and does enough for us such that we can get consent. As Ed pointed out, if you deteriorate the credit to the point where you're going to impact the senior lien holders, that's not going to go well. They're not going to consent to that. They want the security they want because that's what they bargained for from the get-go. And we think that we have a good pathway, but ultimately we need Penvest board to agree to that.
Yeah. Well put. And so at this point in time, it's good, we bide some time. We'll see where it goes.
Question, the world is a little crazy these days right now. And there hasn't been much of it in the news of late about the R word, recession word, but you know, I just know some of the early leading indicators to me that I see and I look and track are not good at all. And, you know, some of the banks are, so how do we stand if there should be a recession that comes on later this year or next year going into it, or how well could we weather, say, a bad recession along the lines of the last one at a 10% drop? And maybe with our business, we don't see, you know, people are gonna get water no matter what, but, you know. I don't know.
So the best I can answer that is that would be the discussion about the day's cash on hand. And what helps us weather the storm is how much money do we have in case of a rainy day. We have a significant amount of invested balances as well that are not in them numbers. So that's our insurance, so to speak, for that rainy day. The only the only thing I could throw out is the economy could get really funny, rates could get really crazy. And when we were looking at what to do in terms of this bond process, you know, that was when rates for us available might have been 4.5%, and that's starting to change daily. So. And part of the deal would be, we're not even sure we could keep it on a tax exempt basis. It would have to go to taxable, and then that becomes even more costly to do that. So that's why I keep pointing back to let's take a breath. Let's give them some time to see what they can work out, and that's in our best interest. And in the meantime, we're not paying anybody to do that.
I'll just add to that kind of on the customer side of things, when we've had those ups and downs in the market in the past, where I think we've seen it more so has been in either changes in the industry output and use of water sales or home sales, new construction slowing down, and you know, that changes how much we're what we plan for in terms of growth. So yeah.
On hand is king. Cash is king.
Cash is king. Okay, any questions?
Thank you. Any question for Ed? Thank you.
Welcome.
Moving to the next topic, the monthly system operation overview. Pages 23 to 29 on the digital package.
Thank you. In front of you, you should have the May 2025 operations report. We'll start off with the good news, which is there were no recordable or non-recordable safety incidents in May. Switching over to the second page. You weren't aware we got a little bit of rain. Right around 10.45 inches of rain. And that had an impact on just about everything in the organization. Just for example, water production in Allentown. You'll see there on the Lehigh River, we averaged about 3.42 million gallons per day. That's probably the highest number I ever told you guys for the Lehigh River. And the reason for that is the Little Lehigh Creek was extremely turbid, basically all throughout May. With all the rainfall, all the sediment being kicked up, it's not as affected in the Lehigh River, so it's easier to treat and usually blend that water to have a more consistent chemical dosing and just treatment in general. Moving down to Klein's Island on the wastewater side, we discharged about 36.79 million gallons per day, which once again is much higher than what we have been seeing throughout the rest of the year. And same thing with our small wastewater plants. We averaged about 250,000 gallons, which is significantly higher than what we average on a basis. Heading on down to the second part, we did receive one notice of violation, and that was for the Emmaus consecutive division on the drinking water side. That was for a PFOS MCL exceedance. That's something that will likely be happening on a quarterly basis until Emmaus is able to remediate their issue, because that's all purchased water. We are still required to sample on a quarterly basis. And with those results, we exceed Pennsylvania's MCL. So that's why we have that notice of violation. Okay, moving down, we did have 2 bypasses. They were both at Heidelberg, and once again, 100% related to the amount of rainfall that we received. The first one occurred on May 9th at 17:45 to about 5:18. And that was once again 17:45. And that total bypass was 1,999,000 gallons. The second bypass occurred on May 31st, and that one went on until June 2nd. The total amount of gallons from that one was approximately 72,000 gallons. Moving on to the third page. Any of the non-compliances, as I mentioned, there was 2 bypasses at Heidelberg. We did not have any permit exceedances with that. It was just the bypasses. And heading on down to Sand Spring, that was a very troublesome month for us. With the amount of rainfall that we had, and also there was some, say, issues with one of the large users in that area. The wastewater flow coming into the facility was basically nonstop. We could not keep the influent EQ tank at an acceptable level. So the water was just cycling through the SBRs, which gave us a lot of issues, mainly with ammonia, total nitrogen. And then when you have short cycle times with high wet weather coming through, it pushes a lot of the solids that you want to keep in suspension for treatment out into basically the EQ tank, which is then discharged. And if you're not able to keep that biomass in, you're not going to get the full treatment. So with that being said, there were 8 permit exceedances in May. Sorry. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this.
In regard to the PFAS, I know there's talk of the federal drinking water deadline being extended for those criteria. Do you know off the top of your head what the state deadline is for meeting those, or is it already in place?
The state, yeah, that one is already in effect. You're talking about Pennsylvania's MCL?
Yes.
Yes, the 18 and 14, that's currently effective.
And was there a time period given to install treatment to meet that?
Yes, that was 3 years ago.
Okay, so Emmaus is behind in completing that then? Or is this new? Like this just happened, or this has been happening and the treatment is just not done yet?
Yeah, I think there's, I can't really comment on Emmaus's decision making, but it is a more recent discovery. So the planning horizon probably overlapped with the compliance horizon to some degree. There has been, I think, over the past 5 years, a lot of confusion as well about where the regulations are going with the health advisory, which used to be 70 parts per trillion, and now it's, for the state, it's 14, and then the federal is 4. So like how all that gets coordinated, I think some municipalities got hung up in that as well.
I thought the PFOS and the PFOA were 4 parts per trillion and the others were 14.
The state, sorry, go ahead.
So the 4 parts per trillion comes into play with the EPA's MCLs. The ones that we are referring to and which we are in violation of is Pennsylvania's MCL, which were adopted about 3 years ago now. And that's 18 parts per trillion and 14 parts per trillion. So that's where it does get extremely confusing over the past few years of all the numbers that have been thrown around, how they've changed. And then, as Jeff just mentioned, that timeline could once again change again.
It's got some grant money to put the ion exchange for the PFAS. Do I have a timetable when this is going to finish and maybe help with this issue?
They're still saying it's 18 months or 2 years away to construct. So they have the design. I think the design is done and they have from Penvest for some significant portion of the project. They've got to construct buildings, tanks.
Sure.
All that stuff.
So we will continue to have this violation from the water we purchase from EMS
Every quarter.
every quarter.
I will say, I think we spoke maybe 6 or 4 months ago about some options or alternative ways to serve maybe some of those consecutive customers. And ultimately, we did have a successful campaign to offer the water pitcher filters that have their specific cartridge that does treat for PFOA and PFOS. And I think we got maybe 35 or so.
I think total was 39, if I remember correctly, so.
So that's 10% or so of the customers took advantage of that offering and we delivered this.
Yeah, Amir, just follow up with the details on MAIS. They have to do a planning module for the treatment system. They're at the planning module stage.
Oh, okay.
So the design's done to Lisa's point. They're at the last permitting stages.
Thank you.
But this was also related to the interconnect we spoke about a couple meetings ago too.
Right.
Right, as well.
Yeah, we had talked about potentially valving off a portion of the system and the feed from Emmaus and instead serving it from our central Lehigh division. It was pretty expensive to do and there were some operational challenges associated with it. So we opted to offer the water pitcher filters and Emmaus is going to treat in time.
Any question for Andrew? Thank you, Andrew. Great job you and your team are doing. I know it's a very challenging time. We need rain, but sometimes just too much in one time,
And we're actually still in drought watch according to.
It's hard to believe. Thank you again, I appreciate it. I think that's all the items we have on the agenda. Any staff comments, please?
I have just two brief ones. First of all, a thank you to the Board of Directors for the support for our participation in the American Water Works Association. Andrew, Chris, and I, and several others from LCA were able to attend the annual conference 2 weeks ago in Denver with about 12,000 other people. And it was an incredible conference, lots of great ideas and innovation shared at that show. So thank you for that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we compensate you for your expenses on this when you go to the,
Yes.
must that be approved by the board or is that a non-board?
It's part of our budget for education and training, all staff expenses.
Also, it's in the education and training budget. Doesn't need to be a separate item.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a quick aside, I was trusting in a union pension fund. And the union members would go out to these conferences every so often for education and what have you. And they had to report their expenses. And we got a report of a stuffing of a large swordfish caught off the coast of California. From the head of the union, the sheet metal workers union. It'll help you. Somehow,
I don't
worked
think
its
so.
way
We're
through to
gonna
the
get that
employer
from-
trustees. That led to a tense meeting.
We do travel, hotel and meals only.
No swordfish, okay, well.
Very
wanted to make sure.
From our accounting department.
We haven't seen any swordfish.
Under staff comments, I just wanted to keep everyone aware that the public notice related to the Pines Island Act 537 plan is going to be published next week.
Next Monday.
Next Monday, and the public comment period, the official public comment period is a 30-day period, so it'll run basically for the month of July. And we'll give you a progress update after we see what we get from that. And then later this summer is when we'll be asking for the board to take some action on approving the plan. That's all I have.
Will any of the individual municipalities also need to have a public comment period or no?
It's all combined for all 15 municipalities. It's actually not our plan. It's the municipality's plan. So we're administering and facilitating. Bill's doing a fantastic job of that, keeping all the ducks in a row.
So technically, Peter, the municipalities get the chance at the planning commission level. That's it. Planning commission level, then public comment period, then right into the resolution.
Thank you. Solicitor comment.
No comments, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any public comment?
No, thank you.
Yep, no, thank you.
Thank you, Brian, Jennifer. Any board member comment?
I have a question, for Lisa. How is our recently acquired property coming along?
So our property at Brookside Road is part of a comprehensive building optimization study that we're doing. We have learned through our discussion with that group, the group that's doing that study, as well as local zoning code enforcement type people, that the facility needs some upgrades before we can put offices there, but we can use it for storage. So we are kind of moving some things out there to free up some space while we finish the study. But it will be rolled into the entire study, which we'll be able to roll out later this year. I believe we'll have results from that. So we can give a comprehensive presentation report about our buildings.
Yes, correctly. Then building next to it is for sale too? Maybe not.
I didn't notice that. That's
Okay.
new if it is.
Huh?
The next two houses on Ham,
The next two are.
yeah, so they're all three properties on the corner there.
And Chris, you've taken steps to make sure that it's secure, and
Yeah.
if we have stuff stored there, it's a secure building.
Yeah, we have our security cameras and we installed our IT system over there, so we have access to it.
I just have our interns start.
It started June 2nd or 3rd, whatever that Monday was. There's a total of 6 of them. And they're in various different departments, some in the laboratory, there's actually one in IT. A few helping out with operations, and then also capital works and asset management. And all the feedback has been excellent so far. It's been going pretty well. They are learning a lot, and we're getting a lot of help from them, to be honest with you. So.
Do we get any MBA intern by any chance?
No, we have not yet. Not last year or this year. We have had graduate students apply, but not necessarily an MBA.
Not one.
I mean, my reason I was thinking of, eventually, just building as we are, those are the pool for future employment for the LCA. I think Ed would love to have some pools as well, so sometimes looking to bring in MBA from local to the internship. They're always hungry to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, getting an internship is not an easy process, and they're lucky to get one. So just for us to think about it, as we bring to the different function, maybe it's worth thinking of bringing MBA.
Yeah, we will definitely regroup after this year and sort of see how we can expand and make things better. And it's definitely a possibility.
Lehigh has a very good MBA program, and other programs would have you.
One, I think, just add on to that, how successful last year's program was. We have one of last year's interns here for the summer as a summer helper in our labs. I guess she's working. Yeah, so she liked it enough to come back and work for us for the summer on her summer break.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
it's good. So I think this is the end of the agenda for a regular meeting. Let's reconvene at 1:15 for our next meeting. I think Lisa has sent the Zoom meeting on a separate note to everybody. If you don't have, just
You can send me a quick email or
Quick
text or
email.
whatever if you don't have it, but so we'll reconvene the executive committee at 1:15.
right,
The committee, the whole board.
board press Lisa.
Yes, also.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks
Have a
everyone.
great day.